How's it going, everybody? Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing great. My name is PJ, and today we're going to talk about the topic of writing, especially in the morning, and the benefits that can have for our lives. So in my life, I've read a lot of different books and have watched a lot of different videos on success, or like stories about successful people, or just tips and tricks and different sorts of advice on how to live a successful life, how to be successful, etc. Those kind of topics. And through all my kind of research and studies, one thing that has been a common denominator, I feel like, in every single thing I've seen and studied is the importance and the place of writing. A lot of people who have achieved a lot of great success in their lives attribute writing to a great degree to that success, and especially the power of, journaling and writing in the morning in particular, actually. And so today in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 different kind of methods, writing methods, or you can say maybe journaling methods, that you can utilize specifically in the mornings to optimize your day, to help your life, to boost your productivity, and maybe just bring more of a sense of well-being into your life, so to speak, through these practices. So the first method of writing we're going to talk about in this video is going to be based on a book that I really love called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And this method is basically freehand journaling or morning pages. The morning pages part is the part that comes from that book, The Artist's Way. It's Julia Cameron's kind of advice to aspiring, basically writers in her case, but aspiring artists, aspiring entrepreneurs, aspiring anyone who is, really anyone, but really anyone who is also trying to do anything creative. So freehand journaling and art, morning pages, those two things are very similar. So I put them in one. That's like the first method we're going to talk about in the video. The second method is based on another book by one of my favorite authors. His name is Donald Miller. He usually writes business books, but this book is more of also a nonfiction book, but it's more about, life in general versus just business. But this book is called Hero on a Mission. And last year I talked about this book a lot on my channel. I refer to it as the best book I read in 2022. And that statement is still true. And that book has this, basically it outlines another way to write in the morning, another framework to utilize in the mornings that Donald Miller has come up with, that he utilizes and uses in his own life and has reaped benefits from it, but he shares it in that book, Hero on a Mission. So that would be our number 2 writing way. So let's call it writing according to the Hero on a Mission framework. And then the third way is kind of my way, which is really more so an amalgamation of kind of the previous 2. I kind of took the parts that I liked from these 2 different methods and put them together and came up kind of with the thing I use, the way I go about it every day, and what I utilize in my own life. And I share that with you so that hopefully you find it helpful as well. So let's talk about the first way of writing in the morning, or what's called freehand journaling or morning pages. Let's talk about morning pages. So morning pages, this term morning pages is again from the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And morning pages is an advice that she gave to a lot of people who came to her for advice in terms of overcoming creative blocks. Basically, she specializes in helping authors or writers or painters or artists of any sort, actors, and you can add to that entrepreneurs, anyone, coders, anyone who's trying to do anything creative, really, because all those things can and do have an element of creativity in them. But really, like, for anybody, this is helpful, like all of us are creative 100%, but for all of us in general, whether what we're trying to has to do with creativity or not, like what morning pages helps you with is going to help everyone. It has benefits for everyone. So what morning pages is basically Julia Cameron's recommendation of basically writing, and I'll actually show you a book I have here. So I was really into this in 2017-ish. So I actually went and bought, this is absolutely not necessary, by the way, but this is just a morning pages journal. They released this to, it's basically just like a notebook. Here, I'll show you an empty page. I'm not going to show you my little writings in here, but here's some blank. But basically it has little quotes, maybe related to creativity. There we go. It has these little, maybe like ideas about creativity and just like little advice. Well, actually, I think all the quotes, let me check. Yeah, I think for the most part, or maybe all the quotes in this are from the book, The Artist's Way. So it's a little promo. But basically, again, I 100% didn't need to buy this, but I kind of just was all in at that point, in this method. But anyways, this is just like the journal. So it, has these empty pages, blank pages. And the idea is like, you write first thing in the morning, like upon waking up, basically, you first thing in the morning when your mind's still kind of like, not even like super clear. You just try to fill 3 pages completely. Like you just like try to literally like write and like fill an entire page completely until you get to 3 pages. Like don't stop and don't think about it. Just like write. And the idea is to just kind of like do a brain dump, or basically kind of do something similar to meditation, where you try to like empty your mind and get maybe thoughts out of your head, so to speak. But basically you're trying to just get it all on the paper, right? And you're not analyzing it, you're not thinking about it, you're just writing and writing and writing. And eventually, like, the goal is, the main goal is to just get your mind empty, get your thoughts on paper. And ultimately what this has helped a lot of people do, this practice, is get a lot more clarity in their lives through just the process of like writing. Even if it's like you're not doing a super like focused journaling session where you have like a certain intention, very focused topic maybe you want to journal on or get more clarity on. You're just writing everything that's like on your mind. Like it's like a brain dump, really. And this practice has helped a lot of people, like I said, get clarity, get answers to their creative problems, overcome those creative blocks. Like I said, The Artist's Way, the book The Artist's Way, and just Julia Cameron's work is really geared towards helping those who are creatively blocked, artists who are creatively blocked, overcome those blocks and break through those blocks. But, this practice really can help everyone. So again, you just write 3 pages, get everything, out on paper, and it just really makes you feel a lot more clear, a lot better. Even if it's not a super focused journaling session, just getting, because otherwise it'd just be sitting there, right? Like with no output, nowhere to go for those thoughts. So now when you get it out on paper, you just feel a lot more clear. You're like, it's like quiet now up here. Now, personally, I don't use this anymore every day, this method. And my reasons are, I personally like meditation a lot more. And again, this is not to say like, if you do morning pages, you're not going to meditate or whatever. You can do both, obviously. But I personally, just for the purpose of clearing my mind, I like meditation more. So I do that. But also, I just always, like, to be honest, just my wrist would hurt if I write 3 pages, and I'm like a relatively slow writer. So I felt like it's too long of a criteria, like 3 pages, especially considering like how big those pages were that I just showed you. But also like it had a lot of benefits for me until I felt like I got what I needed from that practice. And now it's, time to move on maybe with the things that I do like meditation, or like onto new methods and other ways of maybe experimenting with writing in the morning, which, for example, like what we're going to talk about in the next part of the video, the other method. But, I also like to do the morning pages, but like for 1 page maybe, like just like shorter amount. Or if I do journal, which I do in my own life, I like to have kind of more of a focused topic that I journal on than just like a brain dump. I like to have like a certain thing I'm really trying to think about or think through and figure out, and then have that topic and then I journal my thoughts on it. So that's kind of like how I journal personally in my own life now. But definitely in the past, I utilized the morning pages. I got a lot of benefits from it. And I do think if you've never tried it, I think, a lot of people swear by it. A lot of people cannot go without it. Like every day they do it. You can do it on your computer, you can do it on paper, it doesn't really matter, but just try to write out those 3 pages, fill out those 3 pages, and then stick with it just to see how you feel, and then if you liked it, you stick with it. If you didn't, maybe switch it up or change elements of it or move on to other things that may be more suited for you. So on that kind of same note, let's jump into method number 2 that we're going to talk about in this video. That's basically based on the book, The Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller. So method number 2, and again, my own method at the end of the video that I'll talk about is very heavily influenced by this number 2 one. So this method number 2, basically journaling, according to the framework that Donald Miller puts forward in the book, Hero on a Mission. Let's talk about kind of this method and what it entails and what it's like. So Donald Miller he talks about stories a lot and the structure of stories, like what elements go into a story. So, for example, in the book Hero on a Mission, which again, last year I talked about in a lot of my videos, how this is like the best book I read in 2022. And again, like I said, that statement is very, very much still true. And this book is phenomenal at highlighting kind of the different characters and stories that, Donald Miller talks about. Like you have the hero, you have the villain, you have the victim, and you have the guide. And he basically talks about how like these characters are in almost all good stories, and you can find them in most stories, for sure. And so basically what you want to do, according to this framework that Donald Miller puts forward in this book, Hero on a Mission, is you want to see your life as a story, and then you want to basically decide, or, he talks about creating meaningful stories in your life. Like you get to write that. He talks about how like a lot of people, I certainly, fell victim and prey to this kind of way of thinking, where it's like, you kind of just, and there's a lot of validity to going about life this way too, but I think there's a matter of having balance between the two, but like having a very surrendered attitude about life, where it's like, kind of like you throw your hands up and you're like, life, just like take me wherever you want to take me, so to speak, kind of having that very, maybe call it like passive attitude about life. Versus this way of thinking about it and this way of going about it is very much more of an active, taking a much more active role in life, in your own life, and having agency, more so bringing a sense of agency in your own life, and how having that creates a lot of meaning in your life. But anyway, basically he talks about, again, seeing your life as a story, seeing yourself as a hero of that story, but also deciding where this story goes. Like what story do you want to write with your life? Like he basically does this practice where he asks people to write their own obituary, so that they look at their own life as if it's already done. And then like at the end of it, what would that story tell? Like, for example, like in this case, it was like Donald was a great father, he was a great husband, and he did this and he did that and da-da-da. And so it read like a story, right? At the end of it. So that, like, he basically identified the destination or the ending of the story. How do you want the story to go, and how do you want it to end? Basically, where do you want to go? Identifying that story and that kind of destination, so to speak, and then figuring out what your character in this story needs to do today to get to that destination, to move forward to that direction, to move the story forward. And this makes a lot of sense if you actually think of this of a like a story, like Lord of the Rings. Like he needs to get this ring from point A to point B, right? Like to put it like super simply, right? Like he just needs to get it from here to there. And what does he need to do to get there? And so basically, what does he need to do every day, Frodo? What does Frodo need to do every day to get to that destination? And yes, he encounters a lot of obstacles and a lot of different situations, but he just navigates it and like figures out what he needs to do every day to move the story forward, to move the ring towards its destination and move the story forward. So Donald Miller talks about how like to do that in our own life by seeing our own life as a story, figuring out what we want the story of our life to be, what story we want to tell, and then figuring out what we want to do today to move that story forward. Basically, what actions we take today, what do we do today to move the story forward. Now, where the writing part comes in is basically and he does this in his own life and he also has these like free templates online. There's a website, I'll link in the description, where he has like these free templates you can just download, this PDF template of what we're talking about here. But basically it's like a daily, and you can also buy his like daily planner journal type of thing on Amazon. But basically, like you, in his framework, you kind of write out like, okay, like what does the story, what do I need to do in today? Or you kind of remind yourself maybe of like the end goal of the story, like where you want to go, briefly. And then you figure out what you need to do today, to move the story forward in that direction. You write it down in this framework that he has, in this template that he has. And it could be a little bit more specific too, like you can have goals for the day, or like things that the character must do, those kind of basic questions. But it's all done in the framework of a story. Like the story, the thinking of it as a story is just super prominent, right? In that way of journaling based on his framework and that method. But my method, which is, like I said, kind of an amalgamation of two, which we'll talk about now in this third section, is just very similar to Donald Miller's. And, I really I would swear by the Donald Miller method and what he promotes in the book, The Hero on a Mission, and the value of that. I just changed it a little bit in my own life because I'm not I don't like, not that I don't like it, but just the constant thinking of story was it just wasn't like how I necessarily want to go about it like every day. So I'll now talk about my method, which is an amalgamation of the two previous methods, and we'll discuss that now. So my method that we'll talk about now, the method that I use, the journaling or the writing method that I use every day in my own life now, is you can kind of get the basis of it or the basic understanding of it by watching my video titled Life Vision Planning, or basically like, and then the subtitle is kind of like 12 year to 3 year to 1 year to 12 weeks. I think that's kind of like the subtitle or whatever. But basically you can find a link to that in the description. I'll put the thumbnail somewhere over here. But that video kind of describes the basis of what my journaling or my morning writing looks like and is based upon, so to speak. Basically what I do, and I talk about this a lot more in that video that I just mentioned, but what I try to do is I try to get the biggest block of time that I can conceptually really like actually imagine and think of. And I just went with 12 year. I just like that number. I've also heard a lot of different like stories about the significance of every 12 years in our lives. And just the number 12, you have 12 months, you have, just 12 disciples, and it basically just repeats in a lot of different parts of life. But basically, I just try to like create this 12-year vision for my life, go with the biggest block of time I can like conceptually imagine and think of, and just create like a life vision. So this is kind of like where you can say the freehand journaling, or like the morning pages type of journaling, like freehand, not having constraints on it. That kind of journaling comes into play, because you have to journal, you have to like flesh your thoughts out about that. So journaling, like for me, like, what do I want in different areas of my life? Again, I talk about all of this a lot more in that video that's linked below. But, what do I want in, 12 years? Kind of getting a vision. So like having that vision where it's like, at least having a sense of like, that's where I want to go. So that's like the biggest block we're going to work with. And then I break that block down to 3 years. So like, okay, if I'm trying to be there in 12 years, where do I need to be? What checkpoint do I need to be at 3 years so that I'll be moving to that 12 year? And then 1 year, and then smaller than that is 12 weeks. And then smaller than that for me, I just go to a week. And then from the week to a day. So basically having these chunks. So you have like the super long-term big vision, and then like smaller, and then working backwards from that big vision slowly back all the way to this day right here, right now. And so what I try to do, and this is very similar to the Donald Miller kind of like method, but I guess the way I go about it, I don't just think about the story as much. I kind of more think so about like the vision, and basically like maybe in terms of vision and like kind of like somewhat clear goals. and then in terms of like actions that, you know, I need to take. But I guess the big difference is, and if you look at those PDF templates that Donald Miller has, like the focus of story is a lot in those. Like even like the journaling and answering those little prompts he has on those PDF files, on those journaling pages, it has a lot of story way of thinking. And to me, I just like to like have more of a clear, just like, that's the vision, those are the goals, that's kind of like and these are the actions that we need to take to move it forward, basically. So that's kind of like the main difference. But the way I journal, or like the writing part that is involved in this, is at the beginning of each week or before each week, I try to identify all the actions I need to take that week that will move my goals and dreams and aspirations forward towards where I want to go, right? So in different areas of my life, what do I need to do to move forward in the direction of that bigger vision, right? So I do this at the beginning of, this is the writing part. I write down at the beginning of each week what I need to do. What are the different tasks that I need to do that are in alignment with that bigger vision. And then at the beginning of each day, and also at the same time that I write down all those tasks, I try to plug them in on a calendar into these different days. Like, okay, this task A I'm going to do on Monday, task B I'm going to do on Tuesday, task C I'm going to do on Wednesday, and so on and so forth. And I'll plug them in, and at the beginning of each day also, so this is kind of like a continuation of the writing. So I have the what I do like at the beginning of each week, and then I have what I do every day. So at the beginning of each day, I also go over those same kind of like, I look at the task I wrote at the beginning of the week and say, okay, does this still apply? Like, is that still relevant to do that task today? Because I wanted to create a sense of spontaneity. So for a long time, for example, I avoided having very strict plans. I said for a long time, but I really did experiment heavily with this in 2018 and 17, or, you know, maybe some 19, for a while. But I really wanted to just see what it's like to not have too many very like structured plans and stuff. And it was just kind of like something I wanted to kind of theoretically test out. You know, it was like a hypothesis, a spiritual hypothesis I had that I wanted to kind of test out, a theory that I wanted to see if it like plays out for me and works out for me. And it was something that I just wanted to see kind of like how it would go if I don't have a lot of strict plans and I don't have these like super like clear cut like schedules and so on and so forth. And the fear there, you can say, was kind of like I didn't want to feel like I take away the spontaneity of life. But not only that, but like my fear was if I create rigid structures and schedules for my life, then I'm going to take away the possibility of something else happening that would have been much greater for me because I have these very strict schedules. So once I kind of outgrew that to an extent, and then I kind of started testing out with having very rigid like structures and schedules of like, no, like this thing has to be done today or else, you know, kind of like having the attitude and like just unnecessary for no reason, creating those like deadlines and stress on myself for no reason, and having these very you know, intense or strict schedules. So I had to kind of go to that opposite end to see what balance would look like in this. And the way it looks now for me is at the beginning of each day, I'll go over the tasks that I predefined at the beginning of the week, and this is part of my writing. Okay, like I said that on Tuesday, I'm going to do this. Now it's Tuesday morning. Well, this task doesn't really apply anymore. Or this thing I said I'm going to do, well, this other thing has come up now. So having this flexibility of like changing it in the morning of that day brings back that sense of flexibility, not being too strict with the structure, having a structure, having a schedule, but not being so strict with it where you take away and suck out the spontaneity, the, you know, the magic that may happen by not having these super fixed plans. So it kind of reintroduces that back in, and for me, it creates a more of a sense of balance in that structure. And so what this does, what this whole process, this writing that I do, this writing of, at the beginning of the week and at the beginning of each day, what it does for me is that it creates a sense of purpose in my life and a sense of literally like all the actions I'm taking today are directly moving me in the direction of my mission. And that feeling of being on purpose, feeling like things that I'm doing are intentional and are just conscious, they're conscious choices, is a great feeling. And it gives a lot of a sense of purpose to my life. And it makes me feel like that my actions today are actually in alignment with what my purpose is, what my mission is, what I want my life to be, my life vision is, so to speak. And that's why I do this. That's why I wanted to also talk about it, because I do think that it could promote the same sense of purpose, or as Donald Miller would say, for example, a sense of meaning. It helps bring that into our lives. That's why I wanted to talk about it. So basically, to put it simply, what I just said about, my method is, step one, you identify the vision for your life. The second step is you identify the actions or the tasks that will get you to that vision. And the third step is you write those tasks down. You write those actions down that you need to take that day. And then, as Donald Miller would say, you put a little something on the plot. You move the story forward of your life. You take those actions, you write them down, you identify them, and then you take those actions. Lastly, why do we do this? Why do we do what especially I just talked about at the end of the video? Why do we even want to do these practices, this writing, all this stuff? Well, it's because in my experience, it's because it's just fun. It's not because we know for certain what's going to happen. None of us know for certain what's going to happen next, right? We don't know what's going to happen the next moment, the next day, the next month, the next year, yet alone the next, 12 years, as I just talked about. But this is just fun. I think it's just fun to do this. I think it brings a sense of play, youthfulness, joy, adventure, you can say a zest for life. It adds that to life, and it's just fun. And that's why we do this. That's why I do this. So although we know the future is uncertain, doing this creates a sense of destination or destiny that we get to play our parts in every single day. And whether we get there or not is now irrelevant, because now the journey itself has become more fun than the destination. So I hope this video helps you. I hope you find it immensely helpful and beneficial. As I do, using these methods, I find, especially what I've, described in method 3, which is what I use every single day. I have found this to be super helpful. I literally use it every day. And it has been a huge blessing for me having this method, using this kind of strategy. It has helped me a lot significantly. And it has overall made me a much happier person. So I hope that you use it. I hope that you benefit from it. And I hope that I hear from you and your experiences with these methods. Let me know if you have tried any of them before in the comments below, if you're going to try some of these, and if you have any questions about anything I discussed. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos from me, just like this one, please subscribe to my channel so that I pop up on your homepage in YouTube. And if you like this video in particular, please give it a thumbs up so that the algorithm of YouTube shows it and pushes it out to more people. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Until then, take care.